think we were booted out of our breakout room into.
Hi guys, I know I'm so sorry about that. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty here.
Yeah,
We're really sorry about that.
sorry guys. Let me redo this. My
For
computer just
30
basically
minutes.
crashed.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Let's just do this for 30 minutes.
got it. Let me do that. Let's set it for.
Yeah, there was no way to extend it. Sorry,
Yeah,
everybody. I
couldn't do
couldn't
it
find a
after.
way.
Okay, I think we should all be set. Please go ahead and join the rooms again. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
hi.
Vijay.
Sorry, my computer crashed, so I couldn't
Uh,
join.
no worries. We were not sure what was happening because we got that 50-second notification
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
none of us had spoken.
Okay, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I think it'd be nice to just chat about some of those questions. I can just paste them here again. Uh, yeah, if anyone wants to start, that would be nice. Uh,
Sure. So we as an organization and me as an individual, we are just about getting into this field of using acoustic recorders. And so I mainly work with primates and other frugivorous species, fruit-eating species. And my area of interest lies in plant-animal interactions. And we were wondering how we could use this tool to sort of help us monitor some of these frugivore networks better in landscapes that are very challenging for like on-foot surveys and more traditional methods that have been in use thus far. So two of things that we want to do is one is monitor such animals in unprotected areas and establish standardized long-term monitoring framework and have like a open and have this data available through controlled access sharing and things like that, so others can also benefit from this rich comprehensive data. But the main challenges we are facing is one is expertise in using this new tool. And second is the cost, especially when we want to do such monitoring at the landscape scale. So one thing earlier on that I set my mind to is that I want to see if we can develop all of this locally, because even tech support and things like that, they become an issue over time, and having vendors or tech support abroad is not particularly helpful. So we have identified some a local conservation tech partner, but cost is still one of the main challenges that we are facing when we want to do this at a landscape scale. And I'll stop with that.
Thanks so much, Swapna. That sounds, yeah. I was just making a note of all of that. Would anyone else like to go?
Hello, this is Karna, and I'm working on my PhD dissertation. So I'm working on insects, Orthoptera, and under that I'm working on bush crickets. So when you're working on bush crickets, they can have both audible range and ultrasound range sounds. And so when you want to add something to your ecoacoustic sound data, you can only do that for audible range data by point counts or something, or by visually seeing that. But for ultrasound, how can we add visual observations to that? I think that is one thing that is difficult for ultrasound species. And another thing is, for the same reason, because they can have both narrow band and broadband calls, it gets difficult to use acoustic indices for predicting uh, acoustic complexity in an area for these species.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
think that's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely a challenge that researchers face, I think, for species calling at very high frequencies, because visual observations are hard to make. Um, yeah, thanks for that. Anyone else? Please don't feel shy. It's a very informal sort of like, we'd love to hear from everyone in terms of how we can work on all of these topics together.
Hello, my name is Abhishek. I'm helping a PhD student with his work, and we are our work that there are two components. We are working with frog and acoustics. We've collected passive data, and we also have active focal monitoring of focal recordings of frogs. So I'm right now working with the focal data set, and we're going to use whatever data I managed to synthesize out of this data set. We're going to use it for behavioral study, and it's the volume is so high, and we have chosen to automate the whole process, and we've been we believe that we've been successful in doing so. One thing I feel is that so the people are working with so many different taxa, and especially with acoustic data, the volume is so high. If there could be a repository where we could share our findings, like this particular package has helped us with working with this set of data, and this has been so much so successful, or when the variability is past this threshold, this doesn't work. A forum where we could share our findings, where there is a repository of how various automation tools work for different ranges and different taxa, what sort of variability that they could handle. Something like that could be helpful. At this point, we've been going through the webs for chancing upon different packages, different softwares, and seeing how they fit into our data. And especially with behavior, I feel it gets a little more tricky because it's not just presence absence. You're going to use these detections and whatever data that you extract out of these detections to to make comments on the behavior. So I think yeah, something more rigorous in that zone could be more helpful. Basically, creating a repository and saying that how things have worked for you
Right.
when you're working with something more specific.
No, thanks for those points. That's yeah, these are really great points. Anyone else?
Hello, hi, this is Meghna. Hey Vijay,
Hi, Meghna.
hello. We'll catch up soon after this call. Um, but for now, I have been working with bird, and the major issue that I have been encountering mostly is if we have just acoustic data, just PAM data, and no focal, as in no direct observations of any behavioral data as such. Is there, because we keep saying this is a non-invasive method, this is cost-effective method, simultaneous studies can occur at multiple places across time and space. But sometimes it is very hard to draw conclusions based on just PAM data and without the behavioral occurrences. So if there any studies that can, say apart from just richness, if we can draw any other studies with just PAM data is something that I have been struggling with. I did come across quite a lot of papers. I have been going through multiple papers, but most of the papers in the conclusion end with the caveat saying most of these needs to be supported with ground data. Everybody's been struggling with the same thing. So this is just an open-ended question. There's just no conclusions whatsoever. So I just wanted to put it up.
No, that's a great
Thank you.
point. Yeah, I think as a field, we're still trying to inch closer to doing some sort of integrated monitoring. But thanks for that point. Yeah, I think given what all of you have mentioned so far, I'm just wondering if we should talk a bit more about how you'd feel. How do you think the network can help address some of these issues, or potentially, I just wanted to brainstorm with all of you in terms of what sort of activities or events would also be useful for the entire acoustics community in India.
As someone who's just starting out and with pretty much zero experience in this area, any form of training or any sort of workshop with experts that have been using some of these tools for a while now would be extremely helpful. And I guess my other thing is not so much about what it's more of a logistical challenge that we are facing in sort of coming up with a real-time monitoring system because we are working in areas that will not have any mobile network or electrification. So, and they are wet, humid rainforest sort of environments, and we are facing how do you keep these devices charged? How do you take care of transmission loads if you're going to use something like LoRa and things like that? So I'm not sure if that, if that is something that somebody's dealt with. And so if there's some sort of a place where we can exchange information and what's worked and what's not worked, given different species or habitats, just something along the lines of what Abhishek was suggesting earlier, a repository of information that one could fall back upon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for now, I think because we've not yet been able to create like a website or like a repository yet, which is why we wanted to
Yeah,
organize this meeting to hear from everyone.
exactly.
Yeah, I think for now, relying on the WhatsApp group, I know there are a lot of hardware and software engineers there who have been helping debug multiple issues. But that's a great point. I think that's something we should definitely work on in the near future. Anyone else?
Okay, so I have found the talks really helpful. So it is easier to come across people who are working within the same field with the same interest. So I feel like collaborations are more um, plausible with talks and to know similar interests and if we are also looking at the same concept. So I think the bi-weekly or the month, once in a month talks have been really helpful because without institute affiliations and strong backing of a PI, it is very hard to get in touch with any of these collaborators. So that I found helpful. So I would say just keep that going.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I agree with Meghna on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear if you have ideas on I know I heard from some of you about workshops and training with experts and I know we've been doing this talk series and people have been volunteering to do these talks, which has been really nice to hear. But what other sorts of online and in-person events could the network facilitate?
I'm not sure. Sorry,
Yeah,
please
please
go
go.
ahead. No, I was just thinking maybe in-person events can be quite stressful given that the field-based work, but the online meetings and talks, I would still say that feasible.
Okay. Swapna, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
I don't know, I was just wondering if like a call for collaboration we could have calls for collaboration on certain research projects where, we have a clear idea, but of course, like I said, I and my team, we lack the expertise in using this particular tool or even analyzing the data that this tool is going to produce. So can we put out like an explicit call where maybe there are people with that expertise but may not have the field knowledge but would be interested in working with us? So is this a forum for something like that?
Yeah, 100%. I think we should definitely take advantage of that. That there are so many people lot of expertise
Yeah.
currently in these groups. But that's a great idea. Yeah, I think, and this
And
is,
in India, yeah,
sorry?
which will make things. Plus, working with groups that are more regionally located might just make more sense logistically also, if
Yeah.
that is an option.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it should. And this is something that we've also been thinking about that, since there are so many people doing acoustic work in India, we can actually start to hear from everyone about perspectives about this network and how, as a whole, we're working on all these different topics. So, something that we have also been thinking of in terms of even writing up a small perspective piece uh, or a small manuscript, that talks about the benefits of having such a network.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree upon with whatever you guys had to say. So if at all, going forward, website is going to be an option. Having a community page where individuals could go in detail describing their work, something similar to the Ecological Restoration Alliance, where they have a community page, individuals from different ecoregions share about their restoration work, something like that. We could have it here as well. Are they working on behavior? Are they working on PAM data, or what sort of work are they doing with their acoustic data? What tax are they working on? Detailed description could help networking more. Like we could directly connect with that person. Talks are good. Of course, talks are good. I mean, you get more description as to what people are working on, that could lead on to more collaborations. But this could catalyze things up when all the information is out there. People could just directly connect with those specific individuals who do something remotely close to what one is working on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I think reminds me of what the UK has done. So they have a website for the UK Acoustics Network, I think it's called. I could be misremembering what it's exactly called, but similar to what you described, Abhishek, where there's a community webpage where you can see different people doing acoustic work on different aspects. And it's a nice way, like you said, like how people are doing for the ERA, right? So that would be
Yeah.
nice to replicate.
Yeah. Yes. Great.
Another idea or sort of thing that sort of popped in my mind was just like we have like uh, bird data uploaded to eBird, etc. I was wondering if there is like one place where we can go for like acoustic recordings or a chance for us to upload acoustic recordings from field. So we have like a rich enough data set that will help us then, develop these machine learning algorithms. I'm sure for birds and uh, for more popular groups like that, there are enough resources, but for several mammalian groups, I mean, though they're well studied in other aspects, they are lagging behind in this respect. And so if there was one place where all of us can, upload data to from multiple sites, so then those could then be used to develop some of these, the technical people can, develop the algorithms and stuff like that. That could be useful than each person having to do it.
No, that's a great point. I think so far Xenocanto has been used for birds quite a bit, but I know they've opened it up even for insects, and they're also allowing you to
Okay.
sort of add soundscape data. That being said,
Okay.
I can't think of anything for mammals, specifically, and
Yeah.
and again, I think this you brought up a very important point about data, right? Like who owns the data if you're going to share it publicly, and how do we collaborate, and how do we think about audio data ethics. And I think that is something we've been pondering about quite a bit, like having like a centralized system where people can contribute data, but there's a lot more to be discussed about how to manage that data, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in the interest of
I
time,
mean,
I
this
know we
should
have,
probably
sorry.
be open to people that are happy.
Oh, go ahead, Swapna. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just quickly adding that it could be open to people who are, happy to share under something like the Creative Commons license or something like that, where, I mean, many of us record calls just like that for fun also. It may not be even for research or for a specific project because we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So even if you can make a repository of that.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think
that's all.
no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think something to think a bit more about. Yeah, yeah, I just made a note of that. I think since we have 5 more minutes, I wanted to get a better sense of, if you were to think about like a vision for, this network in the coming 1, 2, or 5 years, what would that be? How would you, go about what would you want the network to look like? Yeah, let me keep that as a very broad question. Yeah.
Hey, I would love to see some diverse collaboration because the field is so niche. We just have the same people working on the same task now, but let's say we're interested in something completely different. But since this is a very research oriented field, we might not be able to take that data sometimes. But if everybody is up for collaboration, then that could be wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the diverse collaborations? Like, yeah, I just want to think a bit more about that.
Yeah, like I was the same. I have just been working on the avian acoustic data, but like Swapna mentioned, she is looking at primates data and somebody else is working on insects. We might not know the exact ecological aspect of that taxa, but our expertise just comes from the acoustic background. So, and they might be in need of the same expertise. So,
Got it.
I was thinking in terms of that. So, they
Yeah.
can reach out, we can say, some collaborations like that. I think the network could be doing great stuff.
And so I guess by collaborations, it would be between like, again, going back to our specific case, it's a collaboration between a few conservation partners. And this is to solve a particular issue to do with connectivity for lion-tail macaques in unprotected areas. So we are trying to explore the use of acoustic devices because some of these are very challenging landscapes to go and monitor them day in, day out, especially when they're not habituated. So can we use acoustic monitors to see how they're using and moving across the space to then decide which would be the best potential areas to think of corridors, canopy bridges, whatever they may be. So it's actually sort of solving a very particular sort of conservation problem for a particular species. So it could be partnerships like that. We could easily collaborate with, several other local partners because this is a challenge the species faces across their range, and it may not even just be specific to LTMs. It could be other species that could benefit from this sort of work. So, like Meghna said, yes, this in a few years, I could see some wonderful collaborations emerging from this space.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think the partnerships point is such a good and important point. I think, especially given that we've started this network now and so many people are getting to, sort of connect with each other. And you brought up a really great point that, hopefully in the coming years that would, translate into meaningful collaborations and partnerships.
With some money also coming
Sure,
in.
sure. Yeah, actually, can you talk about money actually? Yeah, fund. Is that something any of you had in mind?
Um,
Like, do you think
yes.
that the organization or the network as a whole, as we work together, should we think about how do we think about funding? How do we think about money? Do you have any ideas on that?
So increasingly, something that I'm beginning to notice is that lots of agencies want to fund like multidisciplinary groups
Hmm.
or collaborations. That is basically a diverse set of partners coming together to solve a particular challenge or whatever it may be. May not be a challenge, but collect data on something. But they seem to encourage such partnerships and collaborations increasingly. I mean, that's not the reason why we formed a collaboration that came about organically, but that seems to be the case, and I totally support that. I think people should start working together, especially lots of us are working on very similar things, and there's only benefit to working together.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great point. Um,
It is still
and
like the upfront costs are so high that I think that's it. That's the daunting part of it, because how do we? Because as a bigger institute, perhaps you have access to more resources, but as a smaller organization, the upfront costs are very high, and so hence the push for local partners, so cheaper devices and things like that.
yeah, no, that's a great point. I think thank you all for making these suggestions. Since we're out of time for now, I'm just gonna exit the breakout room, and let's hear from everyone, all other groups, in terms of what they discussed. Thanks again, and see you guys in a bit.
Thank you.
I'm just creating a whiteboard so I can note down all the ideas that everyone's been thinking about as it's discussed.
Let me I can unmute. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We are also just wrapping.
Hey, Arpit, we're ready when you are.
Hi Pooja, it's Salam. I'm trying to figure out how we put um, your audio through the speakers, but we'll let. Oh, you put the
Oh,
Pooja
can you not hear
audio back
us?
through the speakers? Oh, it's just the plug. Yeah. Thank you all. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
कौन सा वाला? वो वाले कंट्रोल नहीं इधर से कोई
इधर से कंट्रोल नहीं, स्क्रीन शेयर किया, डुप्लीकेट कर दूं क्या?
नहीं रुक पहले उनका आवाज आ रहा है कि नहीं?
आवाज तो आ रहा है।
स्पीकर दिया है ताकि हमें आना चाहिए।
We start with the offline groups to summarize first.
So
Unfortunately,
yeah. So yeah, just stay close to you so they can.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
yes, clearly.
Sorry, it's me again, but nobody else volunteered to do this. So the first question was, what are some of the challenges? So in our group, the main thing that came out for people who work here is equipment. Equipment is expensive. It takes often a year maybe to come once it's ordered. There are not enough dealers. Most equipment is imported. There's often no local stock. Repair is next to impossible locally. So it was mostly the theme for us was equipment in this. The other, of course, is personnel, but that's a funding problem, having enough personnel to actually carry out some of the field work and curate the data. Yeah. So those are the two main problems. Second question. Okay, how can IEN address these needs? Perhaps through equipment sharing, if people have some equipment to spare, or at a time when they're not using it, and definitely sharing of expertise can be useful. And in that sense, pooling resources, particularly with databases. IEN can be a big force in finding the right expertise in India to answer certain questions, building a list of knowledgeable people for the kinds of questions people want answers to, a platform that will help students and interns figure out where the expertise is for what they want to learn. So that was point 2. Point 3, activities and events. I think the most important one that came out was training workshops, maybe something hands-on training workshops, particularly on the acoustics part of it, but also that is recording, signal processing, maybe field visits for different taxa could be held. And then, of course, the online events. I think that's also, that's also part of question 4. Online events, I think the things that have already started, such as having people give talks once a month, people coming from very different backgrounds but interested in acoustics who can share what they're doing and what they know. So everyone sort of is aware of both where the opportunities are and where the problems lie. We also think that having these kinds of workshops for people with different backgrounds, and actually signal processing ones can also be done online, right? Yeah. And that will also enhance training for both students and maybe for citizen science initiatives, help develop better data collection. Long-term vision, we were not so sure, but I think the main thing that came up here is about data, is how do we use our collective expertise and whatever connections or whatever we have to figure out ways to archive data in ways that are safe, reliable, and most importantly, accessible, because currently maybe several international portals on which you can upload data you cannot freely later perhaps access your data without them as gatekeepers. How can we become truly open source? So that's it.
Thanks so much, Rohini. Will there be anyone else synthesizing from themes from the room
Yeah.
before we move on to the online participants?
We have one more. Do you need a mic?
You should be audible from. If not, I'll. Okay. Yeah. Correct. So most of the points are covered by Rohini. But
Can everybody hear that? Yes.
yes. Hope so. Yeah. So cost. So first, what are some of the challenges? So equipment, delivery, scalability. So all this one main point which comes while talking about ecoacoustics is lack of training and technical details to the students who plan to use ecoacoustics or the new. So we do not have much of inline protocol to help students out. So I mean, I'll just go in a way. If we can standardize the protocols or the existing protocols in one place, that would be really helpful. Also, we talked about uh, the theft and conservation surveillance. So now we put out recorders out, but sometimes they get stolen. And so, how do we do it? Do we add GPS trackers or geofencing, or do we do anything? And other than that, we also talked about the problems in data storage. Or do we bring out a centralized server based out of somewhere? How does the data storage issue get solved? Another important point is permissions. How do we manage permissions? Uh, I'm not sure if this can be done, but yeah, that's most of the points in the challenges. How can IAM address this needs? So 2, 3, and 4 kind of I'll mix it. So we talked about having a certified and centralized NPTEL course on bioacoustics workshop kind of thing. I mean, a course kind of thing where the leading bioacoustics researchers in India come together for teaching, and we can make it more structured so that we have some annotated or curated data set which goes through, like initially we say ki what songs are, what bird songs are, or what insect sounds or vocalizations are, and then go on with some hands-on experience. So that kind of covers everything, talking about workshops and all. So, and it's also certified and it can be credited from the students in the institutes. And since it's from government, so it's makes it very helpful. So that will also help us in capacity building. Other than that, we talked about having a lot of talks by people, yeah, which were already mentioned, and then hands-on training, that's mentioned already. So we don't have any more points in this. Um, what else do we have? So we wanted to have, if one important question which we had was, can data be used, a common data set be used for multiple purposes? So if we have collected data from Western Ghats, can a person who wants to annotate birds use it for birds, wants to annotate on insects use it? So can we have a common? So again, the problem of data ownership and data sharing comes. So can IAM help in drafting a policy or something, or like have an idea of how this thing functions? So that's most of the points. I mean, yeah, it's overlapping with what Rohin did mention, but yeah, that's most of the points which we have. Anything else to add? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Aditya.
Do we have another group in person?
No. We are done. You can continue with the online groups.
Okay. Any of the online groups want to go first? Sean, I'm going to call you out if you want to go first.
Yeah, of course, no issues at all.
Okay.
All of the challenges we discussed were pretty much similar to what everyone else has said so far. But I think a couple of things that stood out during our discussion, in terms of challenges especially, is one is that Abhinav from our group had talked about this, saying that there's a lot of information regarding bioacoustics, a lot of research and data in the academic space, but none of that is being distilled down into the public sphere as well. So a lot of it still remains alien to everyday folk who might be fascinated by this. He was talking about creating spaces where they can sort of engage with this idea of bioacoustics as well. Another one was basically was by Bitu, where they were talking about creating IEN, particularly our space here, this community, being sort of multidisciplinary, but also importantly being multilingual in a way, because we've got people coming from all over India. So how can we sort of make a space for people who speak different languages to also be a part of this community? So that was one of the two of the major challenges that were mentioned. And then in terms of how IEN can address these challenges, we're basically talking about enabling access for all of our community members to resource people or access to resources directly as well. One of the main things that we mentioned that has been talked about as well are cost-effective devices, because you might find them abroad, but being able to find them in India specifically, either with time or with cost, that's one of the bigger issues. So maybe providing a space where we can access all of this could be one of the ways, if feasible, for IEN to address this challenge. Another thing is basically through series of workshops like the talks that we had today, uh, having things like that in other talks and workshops as well will definitely help IEN address some of the challenges here. And also, like we mentioned earlier, spaces to share and exchange knowledge as well. So we've got our WhatsApp groups. Are there any other things that we can explore as a collective community so we can share information as well or get help with data analysis, whatever that may be? In terms of events that IEN can do, again, workshops. And then also another thing was exposure. That was a key thing that was mentioned during in terms of events. So basically opportunities for people who are getting into bioacoustics or who aren't as experienced in bioacoustics, to be able to accompany experts in whatever way that is feasible to get like first-hand insight into how all of this is conducted, how the microphones are set up, how the data is sort of sorted out, and how it's all analyzed as well. And then another thing that again Abhinav mentioned was like, he was interested in particularly noise in the context of India and wondering about laws and regulations that existed around noise. So so thinking about engaging with the public as well, can we make space for talking to city planners and designers to ask if they do factor in noise, the noise component when they start designing buildings or landscaping or whatever that may be? Can we introduce the topic of sound and noise into these conversations as well? And could that be one aspect that we could explore? Yeah. And then in terms of what the network should look like in the coming years, a space for inclusivity based collaborations on multiple fronts, that would be really good. So basically, IEN becoming a space we're able to welcome anyone with various degrees of experience of multiple languages and creating a space for them. Then regular meetups, pretty much like this, seminars, our research spotlights, like that, all of that as well. Then one of the things was also maybe like an international conference if we really get this up and running and we feel like we can actually establish something quite significant here and make it a benchmark bioacoustic conference for the world as well. And another thing that Raj Gopal had mentioned was maybe an IEN newsletter as well. That is something that can be immediately achieved, and you can hear read about a lot of different perspectives through that as well. So that might be good to do in whatever way that is feasible, or a regular newsletter as well. So these were all the things that we discussed.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Anyone else want to go next? Yeah, go ahead, Priyanka. Hi.
Hello. I was in the third group three, and we discussed like the first three-ish questions. So here is what we discussed. went through quite a lot of challenges. One of them was meeting experts for for species ID, whether getting equipment that is cheap, but also somehow being able to weatherproof it. And then there's also a challenge of not having enough peer groups or even mentor groups, so that when you're stuck, you just feel like you're the only person in the world that's stuck. Uh, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And then for the second question, how IEN could address these needs, we have a lot of ideas here. One of this was some sort of people matching people with questions to members in our group, sort of like a Tinder for researchers. Maybe this could initially just be like a database of all our members and what their expertise are, and then if people are available to talk over email or whatever. And then the next thing was maybe maintaining like a data store for when researchers have well labeled annotated data that they are no longer using, or maybe there was like a some data that they're no longer using, but then there's questions of data ownership that kind of grazed upon. Next thing was maybe finding teams within the group who are open to maybe doing side projects just for confidence building, and then we well document those so that other people can see how something like that could be done. That way, you meet people and you get to work with them also. And then the fourth thing was some sort of a equipment renting or leasing option within the group. Uh, and then for the third and almost the fourth questions, uh, it would be nice to have workshops on analysis related topics, especially since this is something that's not covered usually in like a standard curriculum. And another event that we could do is maybe like a troubleshooting session where people come pitch their problems, pitch their research, and then they can crowdsource their solutions. Uh, and there was another really interesting idea for public engagement, which was on sound installations. Since we had two sound engineers in our group, they said that this was something that they could work with if researchers wanted to maybe highlight the amazing soundscapes that they're studying. That was all.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
a lot, Priyanka. Oh, that sounds really interesting. The sound installations sound really cool. Thank you for those suggestions. Can we hear from the last group?
Swapna or Meghna, can I call on one of you to discuss, talk about what we discussed?
Hey, sure, I'll be happy to. Hi, I'm Meghna. I think most of the groups have already covered the topics that we have also spoken about. One of the major things that are one of the major things that popped up in one of our discussions was uh, again the equipment related questions, how it is extremely expensive and um, it is very difficult for independent researchers or small groups to get hold of these equipments for research purposes. And one other thing was maybe creating a repository for other taxas apart from birds, because birds have been quite well established for now, but coming from insects or primates research, there are no considerable repositories currently. So maybe that could be something that can be further discussed. And Karuna Gupta mentioned about visual observations for ultrasound species. She's mostly working on insects, the bush crickets, and was finding it uh, quite hard to visualize the ultrasound. I mean, the species are vocalized in the ultrasound frequencies, and it was just an open-ended question that these are one of the challenges that she was facing during her research. And with what IEN can help was again with the hardware equipments, if anything can be sorted out with equipments for researchers and collaborations with mostly these talks and meetings that has been organized. If there are people who are open for collaborations, if they can maybe put it out on the WhatsApp group or maybe chat personally with people who are also coming from similar interests and backgrounds, and if any collaborations can be possible with the current network. So that was mostly what we discussed. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Meghna. I'm just gonna save this so that I don't lose this. Great. I will stop sharing, and I think we're almost nearing noon, so I'll just you know end the session.
Can you hear me? Vijay?
Yeah, but hi.
So I had one more challenge to express. Can I go forward?
Hey, we can't
Can
hear you
someone
online, actually.
repeat?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was one. Yeah. There was one more challenge I wanted to. I forgot about it before. So can I go forward with it? Is there time?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. So people who have worked with ecoacoustics and have deployed recorders in, say, rural or urban setup might have thought about it or might have faced such this thing. So I want to know if this is already a thing, or you think that this can be a thing later on. This is about privacy breach. Like when you put up recorders in urban areas or rural areas, there might be legal consequences, or this can come up as a legal consequence in the future. I don't know how where is this going. If anybody who is working in this can shed light on it, and if this becomes an issue later on, how can we overcome this issue? Were you able to listen to what I said?
No, thanks so much for
Can
that. Sorry, Pooja, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there is a researcher who works on this called Trishant Desai, I believe from Cambridge, who works on essentially privacy surrounding conservation tech. And I think one of the things we could do as a group is look to the regulations that were made for camera trapping, because those are highly invasive. And we could look at what they've done and see how we could adapt that for acoustics. But other than that, this researcher, Trishant, I'm going to leave that contact in the chat. They just put out a paper as well on sort of data privacy, and also just the essentially getting consent from people who might be getting recorded or snapped, pictures of.
Can I also add to that point? That is something we looked at quite a lot in these large scale monitoring projects, and yeah. So I don't know what the situation is in India, but I imagine it's similar to these other countries, and where you're allowed to record audio from wherever as long as your intention is to get people in it. So it's a gray area, and I fully expect that to change in the next few years. But legally, it's fine. Ethically, it's probably not. We've done work to make automated detectors. So if you Google EcoVAD, like VAD, we've written a paper on detecting human speech in ecoacoustic data. And long story short, it's really hard and really messy. So you can do like automated algorithms to do it, but you're not going to get every bit of audio. And then as and when the legislation comes in or whoever enforces it, they'll have to decide what's acceptable. The more foolproof method, because we're doing a bit of monitoring in London now, and we're going for edge approach, so edge detection, bin the data, and then there's no worry. But yeah, it's a very good question, a very open question, and should be addressed in tandem for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks, Sarah, for adding more nuance to that question. Uh, yeah, I think if there are no other questions online or in person, I just want to say thank you all once again for participating in our very first, stakeholder meeting of the network. Personally, I'm feeling very energized after listening to the talks and participating in the discussion sessions. So I think this meeting, one of the goals that I think Sarika and Pooja had also talked about was to help us co-create a unified vision and a purpose for the network. And so over the next couple of months, we'll work on translating what we have based on today's discussion in terms of actionable next steps, and we'll be in touch with everyone. But please feel free to reach out to us if you have more ideas, or if you'd like to volunteer to lead sessions or different activities that all of you have proposed. I think we have plenty of ideas now that we can start to work on. And yeah, lastly, thanks again to Rohini, Sarab, Arpit, Pratik, and Vidya for helping us co-organize this event. Yeah, let's keep the momentum going. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to say a thank you from our side to Vijay, Pooja, and Sarika. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Rohini.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thanks to you. We would never have got off the ground, but for your pushing us. So thank you very much, Vijay. And I'm sorry that you couldn't be here in person and you have to be up so late at night. We have Trump to thank for that. But I guess we still managed to have a good session, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Rohini.
Thank you, Rohini.
Bye, everyone.